Captain Elena Vasquez guided her ship through the massive docking bay of Kepler Station. The trading hub stretched out before her, like a small city floating in space. Ships from dozens of different worlds crowded the landing platforms. Some looked like sleek metal birds, others resembled floating crystals or organic pods that seemed to pulse with life. Elena had been coming to Kepler Station for 5 years now. She knew the routines, the best places to get supplies, and which traders gave fair prices. But today something felt different. As her ship, the Wandering Star, settled onto its assigned platform, she noticed an unusual emptiness in one section of the station. "Captain, we're locked in and secure," called James Chen from the pilot's seat. He was Elena's first officer and had been flying with her longer than anyone else on the crew. "The dockmaster says we can start unloading whenever. We're ready." Elena nodded but kept looking out at the empty section. Strange buildings made of what looked like glass or crystal rose up from that area. They were beautiful in a way that made her chest feel tight. The structures seemed to bend light around them, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. "What's over there?" Elena asked, pointing toward the crystal buildings. James followed her gaze and his face changed. "Oh, that's where the Zephyrians live. Nobody goes there anymore. Bad luck, they say." Elena had heard of the Zephyrians but had never seen any. She knew they looked different from most species and that other traders avoided them. But she had never understood why. "Bad luck how?" she asked. "Just things go wrong when you're around them," James said. He seemed uncomfortable talking about it. "Ships break down, cargo gets damaged, deals fall through. Everyone knows to stay away." Elena frowned. She had been trading in space for 8 years and had met many strange species. Some looked scary, some smelled terrible, and some had customs. That seemed bizarre to humans, but she had learned that looking different didn't make someone dangerous or unlucky. "Has anyone actually proven they cause bad luck?" she asked. James shrugged. "I just know what I've heard. Come on, let's get the cargo bay open. Zara's probably already got the manifest ready." They made their way to the cargo bay where Zara Okafor was indeed waiting with her tablet. Zara was their engineer and the newest member of the crew. She was also the most curious person Elena had ever met. If there was something to figure out or fix, Zara wanted to understand how it worked. "We've got buyers lined up for most of the medical supplies," Zara said, showing Elena the tablet. "And there's a good demand for the Earth coffee. Apparently, it's become popular with the Cathari merchants." Elena smiled. Coffee had become one of their most profitable trade goods. Humans seemed to be the only species that had figured out how to grow and prepare it properly. Other species either couldn't drink it safely or didn't understand why anyone would want to. They spent the next few hours unloading and organizing their cargo. Elena noticed that other traders gave them plenty of space, but not in a friendly way. They seemed nervous, constantly looking over toward the crystal section of the station. As the artificial evening cycle began on the station, Elena decided to explore a bit. She often liked to walk around new places, getting a feel for the local culture and maybe finding interesting items to trade. James and Zara were busy with inventory, so she went alone. She walked through the main marketplace past vendors selling everything from exotic fruits to advanced computer chips. The smell of different foods mixed together in a way that should have been unpleasant but somehow worked. Conversations in dozens of languages created a background hum that Elena found comforting. Without really planning to, she found herself walking toward the crystal buildings. As she got closer, she could hear something unusual. It wasn't quite music, but it wasn't just noise either. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with distant singing, but deeper and more complex. The sounds were coming from the crystal buildings. Elena realized that this must be how the Zephyrians communicated. She had read that they used sound frequencies instead of spoken language, but hearing it was completely different from reading about it. The sounds made her feel strange. Not scared exactly, but something deeper, like remembering a dream she had forgotten or hearing an echo from a place she had never been. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. Elena found herself standing at the edge of the Zephyrian section. Up close, the buildings were even more impressive. They seemed to be grown rather than built, like crystal formations in a cave. Light moved through them in patterns that almost made sense, like they were trying to tell her something. "You should not be here." The voice came from behind her. Elena turned and saw a creature that took her breath away. The Zephyrian stood about as tall as a human, but was made of what looked like living crystal. Light passed through their body, breaking into colors that shifted as they moved. Their face was hard to make out, more like a suggestion of features carved in glass. "I'm sorry," Elena said. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just curious about the sounds." The Zephyrian tilted their head. When they spoke, their voice had the same musical quality as the sounds from the buildings, but formed into words Elena could understand. "Most beings find our voice disturbing," the Zephyrian said. "You do not seem afraid." "It's beautiful," Elena said honestly. "Different, but beautiful." The Zephyrian was quiet for a long moment. Light pulsed slowly through their body like a heartbeat made of illumination. "I am called Resonance of Distant Thunder," they said finally. "Though most here simply avoid using names for my kind." "I'm Captain Elena Vasquez," Elena replied. "I captain a trading ship called the Wandering Star." "A human captain," Resonance of Distant Thunder said. There was something like surprise in their musical voice. "We have heard much about humans, that you are different from other species." "Different how?" "That you do not judge by appearance alone, that you listen to voices others choose not to hear." Elena felt there was more meaning in those words than she understood. "Is there something you need to tell someone?" Resonance of Distant Thunder looked toward the distant stars visible through the station's large windows. "There is much to tell, but who would listen to the cursed ones? Who would believe the harbingers of doom?" "Try me," Elena said. The Zephyrians. Light pulsed faster, almost like excitement or fear. "You would hear our words, even knowing that others believe we bring misfortune?" "I make my own decisions about who to trust," Elena said. "And I've found that the people everyone else avoids often have the most important things to say." Resonance of Distant Thunder was quiet for so long that Elena wondered if she had said something wrong. Finally, the crystal being spoke again. "There is a ship of my people leaving tomorrow for the Outer Rim. We search for proof of something terrible approaching, something that threatens all life in this galaxy. If you truly wish to listen, Captain Elena Vasquez, perhaps you would consider giving passage to one who has been trying to speak this truth for many years." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She thought about James's warnings about bad luck. She thought about her crew and their safety. But she also thought about all the times in human history when someone had been ignored or cast out for telling an uncomfortable truth. "Meet me at my ship tomorrow morning," she said. "Docking Bay 7. We'll talk more then." As Elena walked back toward her ship, she could hear the Zephyrian's harmonic voice echoing behind her. For the first time, she thought she could almost understand what the sounds meant. They sounded like hope. Elena woke early the next morning, her mind still full of questions about her conversation with Resonance of Distant Thunder. She found James and Zara in the ship's small kitchen, sharing breakfast and going over the day's trading schedule. "We've got 3 confirmed buyers for the medical supplies," Zara was saying as Elena sat down with her coffee. "And the Cathari merchant wants to meet about a regular coffee trade route." "That's good," Elena said, but her voice was distracted. James looked at her carefully. "Everything okay, Captain? You seem like you've got something on your mind." Elena took a sip of her coffee and decided to be direct. "I'm thinking about taking on a passenger. Always good for extra income," Zara said cheerfully. "Where are they headed?" "The Outer Rim," Elena said, "and there's Zephyrian. The atmosphere in..." The kitchen changed immediately. James set down his cup with a sharp click. "Elena, no," he said. "I told you yesterday about the stories. Bad things happen around them." "What kind of bad things?" Elena asked. "Specifically," James looked frustrated. "I don't know specifically. Equipment failures, accidents, deals that go wrong. Everyone knows. It Everyone believes it, Elena corrected. That's not the same thing. Zara was looking back and forth between them with interest. I've never actually met a Zephyrian, she said. What are they like? Scary looking, James said immediately. They're made of crystal or glass or something, and the sounds they make, it's like nails on a chalkboard but worse. Makes your skin crawl. Elena remembered the beautiful harmonic voices she had heard. I didn't find them scary at all. Because you're stubborn, James said, but there was affection in his voice. Look, I've been flying with you for years, and I trust your judgment about most things, but this feels different. This feels dangerous. Elena understood his concern. James had been with her through some difficult situations, and his caution had saved them more than once. But she also remembered the loneliness in resonance of distant thunder's voice. What if I told you they might have information about a threat to the entire galaxy? Elena asked. Zara's eyes lit up with curiosity. What kind of threat? I don't know yet. But I think it's something important enough that they've been trying to warn people for years. James ran his hands through his hair. And you think they've been ignored because of how they look? I think they've been ignored because fear makes people stupid, Elena said. How many times in human history have we dismissed someone's warnings because we didn't like the messenger? Zara nodded slowly. It does happen a lot. Scientists who discovered uncomfortable truths, people who tried to warn about disasters, whistleblowers who exposed corruption. This is different, James insisted. Those were human situations. This is alien, and we don't understand the rules. Then maybe it's time we learned, Elena said. A soft chime from the ship's communication system interrupted their discussion. Elena got up to answer it. Captain Vasquez, came a voice from the station's docking control. You have a visitor at your ship's entrance. Elena looked at James and Zara. I asked them to come this morning. Let's at least hear what they have to say. James sighed but nodded. Okay. But if anything starts going wrong, we're out of here. They made their way to the ship's entrance airlock. Through the small window, Elena could see resonance of distant thunder waiting outside. In the bright station lights, their crystal body seemed even more beautiful than it had the night before. Elena opened the airlock and stepped out to greet them. Thank you for coming. Thank you for offering to listen, resonance of distant thunder replied. Their musical voice echoed slightly in the docking bay. Though I sense your companions are less certain about my presence. Elena glanced back at James and Zara, who were standing in the airlock doorway. James looked tense, but Zara was staring at the Zephyrian with obvious fascination. They're concerned about stories they've heard, Elena said, about bad luck following your people. The stories are not entirely untrue, resonance of distant thunder said sadly, though the cause is misunderstood. We do not bring misfortune. We simply see it coming. What do you mean? Zara asked, stepping forward despite James's worried look. Resonance of distant thunder's body pulsed with light as they considered their words. My people were once the galaxy's greatest archaeologists. Our crystal forms allow us to interface directly with ancient technologies. We could read the memories stored in old machines, understand the history written in forgotten ruins. That sounds like a valuable skill, Elena said. It was. For thousands of years, we helped other species understand their past, recover lost knowledge, and learn from the mistakes of civilizations that came before. We were honored guests on most worlds. What changed? Zara asked. 50 years ago, we discovered something at the galaxy's edge, in the ruins of a civilization so old that even we had no records of them. The technology there was beyond anything we had ever seen. But it was also terrifying. Resonance of distant thunder paused, their light dimming slightly. We found records of something called the Devourers, entities that exist partially outside normal space. They consume not just matter and energy, but the very concepts that hold reality together. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. And they're coming here? They are already here, resonance of distant thunder said, moving slowly through the outer rim, feeding on star systems and growing stronger. The ancient civilization we studied had detected them approaching and tried to prepare defenses. They failed. James stepped forward, his fear replaced by skepticism. If this is true, why hasn't anyone else detected them? The Coalition has monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. The Devourers move between dimensions, Resonance of Distant Thunder explained. They only become visible when they feed. By then, it is too late for those they consume. And you tried to warn people, Elena said, understanding beginning to dawn. We brought our findings to the Galactic Coalition 50 years ago. We presented the evidence, showed them the ancient records, explained the danger. But our appearance, the disturbing nature of our discovery, it made others uncomfortable. Zara made a soft sound of understanding. They associated you with the bad news you were bringing. Precisely. When systems began disappearing at the galaxy's edge, people remembered our warnings. But instead of listening to our advice, they blamed us for the losses. They said we had brought a curse upon the galaxy. Elena felt anger building in her chest. So they cast you out instead of working with you to solve the problem. Fear makes even intelligent beings act foolishly. Resonance of Distant Thunder said. We have spent 50 years watching and waiting, gathering more evidence. But fewer and fewer will listen to us. How many systems have been lost? James asked. His skepticism was giving way to concern. 17 confirmed. Perhaps more. The disappearances have been accelerating. We believe the Devourers are preparing for a major push toward the galaxy's populated core. Elena looked at her crew. Zara's face was full of scientific curiosity mixed with worry. James looked like he was fighting an internal battle between caution and duty. What kind of evidence do you have? Elena asked. Resonance of Distant Thunder reached into what Elena had thought was decorative crystalline structure on their body. It opened like a complex puzzle box, revealing a small device that hummed with energy. Recordings from the disappeared systems, sensor data that shows impossible gravitational anomalies, communication fragments from colonies that went silent. Mid-sentence, they held out the device. Everything we have learned in 50 years of investigation. Elena took the device. It was warm to the touch and seemed to vibrate slightly, like it contained more energy than its small size should allow. Why are you showing this to us? James asked. Why humans? Because humans are the only species that has consistently shown willingness to help the outcasts and listen to the ignored, Resonance of Distant Thunder said. In our study of galactic history, we have seen this pattern repeated. When others turn away, humans step forward. Elena looked at the device in her hands, then at her crew. If we help you investigate this, are we putting ourselves in danger? Yes, Resonance of Distant Thunder said without hesitation. The Devourers will not distinguish between threats and innocent bystanders. But if we do nothing, the danger will come to everyone eventually. Elena made her decision. James, set course for the Outer Rim. Zara, I want you to analyze this data and see what you can make of it. We're going to find out if these Devourers are real. James sighed deeply but nodded. I hope you know what you're doing, Captain. I hope so too, Elena said, looking at the small device that might contain the key to saving the galaxy. But I'd rather face the unknown than ignore a warning that could save billions of lives. As they prepared to leave Kepler Station, Elena noticed that other traders were already moving away from their ship. Word traveled fast in space, and apparently, taking on a Zephyrian passenger was enough to make them unwelcome. But Elena had learned long ago that doing the right thing was rarely the same as doing the popular thing. And if there was even a chance that Resonance of Distant Thunder was telling the truth, she couldn't live with herself if she walked away. 3 days later, the wandering star emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler colonies. Elena stared at the star charts on her screen, comparing them to the data from Resonance of Distant Thunder's device. According to the records, there should have been 12 inhabited worlds in this system. I'm only reading 3 planets, Zara reported from the sensor station, and no signs of life on any of them. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Are you sure? Maybe they're just powered down, or using different communication frequencies. I've tried every standard frequency, Zara said, her voice troubled. There's nothing. No radio signals, no power signatures, no heat sources that would indicate cities or settlements. Resonance of distant thunder moved closer to the sensor displays. Over the past few days, Elena's crew had grown more comfortable with their passenger. Zara was especially fascinated by the way the Zephyrian could interface directly with computer systems, their crystal body somehow connecting with electronic circuits. This matches the pattern we have observed before, Resonance of Distant Thunder said. Their harmonic voice carried notes of sadness. The worlds remain, but all life has been consumed. James piloted the ship toward the nearest planet. As they got closer, Elena could see that something was terribly wrong. The planet's surface looked gray and lifeless, like someone had drained all the color from it. The atmosphere is still there, Zara reported. Oxygen, nitrogen, all the gases that should support life. But there's no chlorophyll signature from plants, no thermal readings from cities, nothing. They landed on what the charts said had been the planet's capital city. Elena suited up for EVA and led a small team to explore the surface. What they found made her feel sick to her stomach. The city was still there, but it looked like a photograph that had been left in the sun too long. Buildings stood in their proper places, but they were gray and brittle. When Elena touched a wall, pieces crumbled away like ash. It's like everything just faded, James said over the comm system. The shapes are all here, but there's no substance left. Resonance of distant thunder moved among the ruins with careful steps. Their crystal bodies seemed brighter here, as if they were reacting to something the humans couldn't sense. The energy has been drained, they explained. Not just electrical, power, but the fundamental forces that hold matter together. The strong nuclear force, electromagnetic binding, even the quantum field fluctuations that give substance its reality. How is that possible? Zara asked. As an engineer, she understood physics better than most, but this defied everything she knew. The Devourers exist partially outside our dimension, Resonance of Distant Thunder said. They can reach into our reality and feed on the energy that makes existence possible. When they are finished feeding, what remains is just echo, shadow, the shape of what once was, but without the reality to sustain it. Elena knelt down and picked up what looked like a child's toy. It felt lighter than air and disintegrated in her hands. She had to fight back tears thinking about what had happened here. How many people lived on this planet? She asked. 43 million, James said, checking the colony records, including 15 million children. The silence that followed was heavy with grief and horror. Elena stood up and looked around at the dead city, trying to imagine it full of life just months before. We need to check the other planets, she said finally, and then we need to warn Earth Command. They spent 2 more days investigating the dead worlds. Each one told the same story. Thriving colonies reduced to gray shadows, billions of lives simply erased. Elena recorded everything, taking video, evidence and sensor readings that proved what had happened. On the journey back toward inhabited space, Elena sent an encrypted message to Earth Command. She included all their evidence and urged immediate action. The response came back 3 days later. Received your report. Analysis suggests natural disaster or equipment malfunction. Recommend psychological evaluation for crew. No evidence of unknown hostile entities. Maintain standard trading routes. Elena stared at the message in disbelief. They think we're making this up. Or suffering from space psychosis, James added bitterly. It's easier to dismiss us than to face the possibility that we're right. Zara was working at her computer station, running calculations. Captain, I've been analyzing the pattern of disappearances. If Resonance of Distant Thunder is right about the acceleration, the Devourers will reach the Centauri colonies within 6 months. That's where my sister lives, Elena said quietly. 2 billion people in that system. Resonance of Distant Thunder approached them, their body pulsing with urgent light. There may be a way to stop them or at least slow them down, but we would need to work with more of my people, and we would need to study the Devourers directly. Study them how? James asked suspiciously. There are still active feeding sites along the rim. places where they are currently consuming reality. If we could observe them while they feed, we might understand their nature well enough to find a weakness. Elena felt her heart racing. You're talking about going directly to where these things are feeding. Yes, it would be extremely dangerous. Ships that get too close simply cease to exist. But if we could find a way to observe from a safe distance or perhaps develop some kind of protection, Zara's eyes lit up with the kind of dangerous enthusiasm that Elena had learned to both appreciate and fear. What kind of protection? My people's crystal technology might be able to create a kind of reality anchor, resonance of distant thunder, explained. A field that reinforces the quantum structure of matter, making it harder for the devourers to drain. Might be able to, James repeated. That doesn't sound very certain. Nothing about this situation is certain, Elena said. But we can't just ignore it and hope it goes away. She made her decision. Set course for the nearest Zephyrian outpost. We're going to need help. The journey to the Zephyrian outpost took 4 days. Elena spent the time learning more about Zephyrian technology and culture. She discovered that their harmonic communication was incredibly sophisticated, capable of transmitting complex mathematical concepts and emotional nuances that human language struggled to express. She also learned that the Zephyrians had been working on the devourer problem for 50 years, developing theories and technologies that other species had dismissed along with the warnings. They had created detection systems that could sense reality distortions, and they had been quietly tracking the entity's movement across the galaxy. The Zephyrian outpost was built into a large asteroid at the edge of a nebula. As they approached, Elena could see crystal structures growing like beautiful flowers from the rock surface. The whole installation hummed with harmonic frequencies that created complex patterns of interference. It's beautiful, Zara said, watching the light patterns dance across their ship's hull. It's functional, resonance of distant thunder corrected gently. The harmonic frequencies serve multiple purposes: communication, power distribution, structural integrity, and reality reinforcement. They were met by an ancient Zephyrian called Harmony of Forgotten Stars. Their crystal body was larger and more complex than resonance of distant thunders, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift like living fractals. So, Harmony of Forgotten Stars said in a voice like wind chimes made of starlight, the humans have finally come to listen. Elena felt embarrassed by how long it had taken. We're here now, and we want to help. Help may not be possible, the ancient Zephyrian said. The devourers have been feeding for decades. They grow stronger with each system they consume. Soon they will be powerful enough to begin consuming space itself, unraveling the structure of the galaxy. There has to be something we can do, Elena insisted. Harmony of Forgotten Stars studied her with what Elena thought might be approval. Perhaps there is a theory we have been developing, a way to use harmonic resonance to create reality barriers, but it would require coordinating hundreds of Zephyrian singers and ships capable of surviving close proximity to active devourer feeding sites. We'll help you build them, Zara said immediately. Human engineering combined with Zephyrian crystal technology, we can make ships that will survive. The Coalition will never approve it, James pointed out. They've already dismissed our evidence. Then we'll have to prove it to them the hard way, Elena said grimly, when the devourers get close enough to the core worlds that even the Coalition can't ignore them anymore. By then it may be too late, Harmony of Forgotten Stars warned. Elena looked around at the crystal structures surrounding them, thinking about the billions of lives that depended on finding a solution. Then we better work fast. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the Zephyrian outpost. The harmonic frequencies changed to urgent, discordant notes that made Elena's teeth ache. What is it? She asked. Resonance of distant thunder was interfacing with a nearby console, their body flickering with rapid light patterns. Long-range sensors have detected reality distortions moving toward the Vega system. The devourers are accelerating their advance. How long until they reach Vega? Elena asked. At their current rate of movement, 6 days. Elena felt the weight of the galaxy's fate settling on her shoulders. 6 days to develop a defense against cosmic entities that could unmake reality itself. 6 days to convince a skeptical coalition that the threat was real. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Elena barely slept as she coordinated between human engineering teams and Zephyrian crystal singers. The wandering star had become the center of the most unusual military operation in galactic history. Zara worked alongside Zephyrian technicians to retrofit human ships with crystal matrices. The technology was unlike anything she had ever seen. The crystals didn't just store energy or process information. They somehow made reality more solid, more resistant to being unmade. It's like they're singing the universe into being more itself, Zara explained to Elena during one of their brief meal breaks. The harmonic frequencies create standing waves in the quantum field that reinforce the basic structure of matter. Can it actually stop the Devourers? Elena asked. I don't know, Zara admitted, but it's the only thing we've found that has any effect at all. Meanwhile, James was dealing with increasingly frantic communications from Coalition Command. News of the reality distortions approaching Vega had finally reached the core worlds, and panic was beginning to spread. They want to send the entire Fifth Fleet to intercept, James reported. Standard battle formation, energy weapons, the usual approach. Elena felt sick. That's exactly what the ancient civilization tried. It doesn't work. Conventional weapons can't touch something that exists partially outside our dimension. Try telling them that, James said bitterly. They think we're either crazy or working with hostile aliens to spread panic. The breakthrough came when Harmony of Forgotten Stars demonstrated the reality anchor technology to a small group of coalition observers. They had finally agreed to send representatives after 3 more systems went silent, their disappearances confirmed by long-range sensors. The demonstration took place in an empty section of space near the Zephyrian outpost. Harmony of Forgotten Stars and 12 other crystal singers created a harmonic field around a small asteroid. Then they used a modified mining laser to simulate the kind of energy drain that the Devourers caused. Without the harmonic protection, test materials simply disintegrated when exposed to the drain beam. But inside the reality anchor field, they remained solid and stable. The harmonic frequencies somehow prevented the fundamental forces from being disrupted. Impressive, admitted Admiral Chen, the Coalition's military observer. But can you scale this up to protect entire fleets? With enough singers and properly equipped ships, yes, Harmony of Forgotten Stars replied. But the Devourers themselves will not be as predictable as our test beam. They are intelligent and will adapt to our defenses. Admiral Chen looked skeptical. You're talking about entities that can think and plan. They were once a civilization like any other, resonance of distant thunder explained. But they consumed their own reality in pursuit of transcendence. Now they exist as living hunger, driven by an addiction to the act of consumption itself. The Admiral's skepticism vanished when the first reports came in from Vega. The Coalition, ships that had been sent to defend the system, simply stopped transmitting. One moment they were sending routine status updates. The next moment, there was only silence. Long-range sensors showed something impossible. Empty space where the Vega system should have been, not destroyed, erased, as if 12 planets and a star had never existed at all. Impossible, Admiral Chen whispered, staring at the sensor readings. You can't just delete a star system. The Devourers can, Elena said grimly. And they just did. Within hours, Coalition Command had authorized the emergency retrofit program. Human ships throughout the galaxy began receiving Zephyrian crystal matrices and harmonic generators. It was the largest joint technological project in galactic history, accomplished in days rather than the years it should have taken. Elena found herself leading a mixed fleet of human ships and Zephyrian crystal vessels toward the advancing edge of the Devourer incursion. Intelligence reports suggested they were targeting the heavily populated Centauri system next, Elena's sister's home. Fleet status report, Elena called out as they prepared to drop out of hyperspace. 37. Human ships all equipped with reality anchors, James reported. 15 Zephyrian crystal singers providing harmonic support, and one very nervous captain wondering what the hell we think we're doing. Saving the galaxy, Elena said, with more confidence than she felt. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system and immediately saw their enemy. The Devourers weren't ships in any conventional sense. They looked like holes in space itself, dark voids that hurt to look at directly. Reality seemed to bend and warp around them, creating visual distortions that made Elena's eyes water. Holy Mother of, James began, then couldn't finish the sentence. Sensors are having trouble getting consistent readings, Zara reported. The things exist partially outside normal space-time. Our instruments can only detect them when they interact with our reality. How many? Elena asked. I count, maybe 15. It's hard to tell where one ends and another begins. The largest of the entities was already beginning to feed on Centauri Prime. Elena watched in horror as the planet's atmosphere began to thin and its surface started to gray. Even from their distant position, she could see the reality distortion spreading outward from the feeding site. All ships, activate reality anchors, Elena ordered. Zephyrian singers, begin harmonic resonance. The response was immediate. Elena felt a strange sensation as the reality anchor engaged, like the universe suddenly became more solid around her. The harmonic frequencies from the Zephyrian ships created visible patterns in space, waves of light that seemed to strengthen the fabric of existence itself. It's working, Zara reported with excitement. The reality distortions aren't penetrating our defensive field. But their success was temporary. The Devourers noticed the resistance and began to change their approach. Instead of passively draining energy, they started actively attacking the reality anchor fields. Contact, James called out as one of the entities turned its attention to their fleet. Something's trying to unmake us. Elena felt it too. A horrible sensation like being slowly erased from existence. Her ship's systems began to flicker and fail, but the harmonic frequencies from the Zephyrian singers intensified and the reality anchor held. All human ships target the feeding site with concentrated fire, Elena ordered. Zephyrian vessels maintain harmonic support. The combined fleet opened fire on the Devourer that was feeding on Centauri Prime. Energy beams and missiles struck the dark entity, and for the first time in galactic history, a Devourer reacted to being attacked. It pulled back from the planet's surface, the reality distortions around it fluctuating wildly. We heard it, Elena said in amazement. The reality anchors force them into normal space where they can be damaged, but their victory celebration was short-lived. The wounded Devourer let out something that Elena could only describe as a scream, a sound that existed below the range of normal hearing, but somehow reached directly into her brain. The other entities responded, converging on the fleet with terrifying speed. Evasive maneuvers, Elena shouted. All ships, scatter and maintain harmonic fields. What followed was the strangest battle in galactic history. Human ships darted between reality distortions while Zephyrian singers maintained the harmonic frequencies that kept existence stable. The Devourers attacked not with weapons, but with pure unbeing, trying to erase their enemies from reality itself. Elena watched 3 ships simply vanish when their reality anchors failed. One moment they were there, the next moment there was just empty space and the fading echo of their last transmission. We can't keep this up, James said as their ship shook from another reality attack. They're adapting too fast. Elena looked at the tactical display. The Devourers were learning to work together, creating overlapping fields of unreality that were overwhelming the harmonic defenses. Soon they would break through to finish consuming Centauri Prime and its 2 billion inhabitants. Harmony of forgotten stars, Elena called over the communication channel. Is there anything else we can try? The ancient Zephyrian's response was filled with harmonic overtones of sadness and determination. There is one possibility, but it would require a direct harmonic interface with the largest entity. Someone would need to get close enough to sing directly into its consciousness. How close? Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Contact distance. Where the reality distortions are strongest. It would almost certainly be a one-way journey. Elena looked around at her crew. James was grimly focused on piloting their ship through the chaos. Zara was frantically trying to keep their systems running as reality fluctuated around them. Resonance of distant thunder stood at the center of the bridge, their crystal body glowing with the effort of maintaining their harmonic field. I'll do it, Elena said. No, James said immediately. Elena, no, there has to be another way. There isn't time to find one, Elena replied. Every minute we delay, more people die. Resonance of distant thunder stepped forward. If this is to work, a human ship alone will not be sufficient. The harmonic interface requires a... Elena felt her ship shuddering as they approached the massive devourer. Reality became unstable around them. Colors shifted to impossible hues. The ship's geometry seemed to twist, and she could taste sounds and hear light. The reality anchor was holding, but barely. How close do we need to get? Elena asked, her voice sounding strange in the distorted space. Closer than any ship has ever survived, Resonance of distant thunder replied. Their crystal body was blazing with light now, all their energy focused on maintaining the harmonic field that kept them from being erased. We must reach the interface layer where its consciousness touches our reality. Elena pushed the wandering star deeper into the reality distortion. Her instruments were going crazy, showing readings that made no sense. According to her sensors, they were somehow moving backward through time while simultaneously existing in 17 different locations. There, Resonance of distant thunder said suddenly. I can sense its mind. Elena felt it too, a vast alien consciousness that was both incredibly ancient and terrifyingly hungry. It was like touching the mind of a black hole, if black holes could think and feel and want. The entity's thoughts were focused entirely on consumption, on the need to feed, on the addictive pleasure of unmaking reality. Can you communicate with it? Elena asked. I am trying, Resonance of distant thunder said. Their harmonic voice had changed, becoming deeper and more complex. Elena realized they were singing directly into the entity's consciousness, using their crystal body as a transmitter to reach across the dimensional barrier. The response was immediate and terrifying. The devourer's attention focused on them like the gaze of an angry god. Elena felt her ship begin to dissolve at the edges as the entity tried to unmake them completely. The reality anchor is failing, she shouted over the sound of stressed metal and impossible harmonics. Hold position, Resonance of distant thunder said urgently. I am beginning to understand. They are not evil. They are sick. They were once a species like any other, but they consumed their own reality trying to transcend physical existence. Now they are trapped in a cycle of consumption, unable to stop feeding. Elena gritted her teeth and poured more power into the reality anchor. She could feel her ship dying around her, its structure slowly being unraveled by forces that shouldn't exist. But Resonance of distant thunder's song was having an effect. The chaotic thoughts of the devourer were beginning to show patterns, memories of what it had been before the hunger consumed it. I see their past, Resonance of distant thunder said, their voice filled with wonder and sadness. They were called the Eternals. They sought to become pure consciousness, to exist beyond the limitations of matter and energy. But the process they used was flawed. Instead of transcending reality, they became dependent on consuming it. Elena felt a moment of sympathy for the cosmic horror that was slowly killing her ship. Can they be healed? Perhaps. But it would require them to remember what they were before the hunger, to choose existence over consumption. The devourer's attention was now fully focused on them. Elena could feel its consciousness pressing against her mind, trying to understand what they were attempting. For a moment she thought she glimpsed something beyond the hunger, a sadness so deep it made her want to cry. It's working, she said. I think it's starting to remember. But their success attracted the attention of the other devourers. Elena watched in alarm as several of the entities began moving toward their position. If they attacked together, no reality anchor would be strong enough to protect them. Resonance of distant thunder. We need to finish this quickly. I cannot do it alone, the Zephyrian said. The harmonic interface requires multiple voices to create the full pattern. We need the other singers. Elena made a split-second decision. All Zephyrian vessels converge on our position. All human ships provide cover fire and maintain defensive fields. Elena, no, came James's voice over the communication system. You're ordering them to their deaths. Maybe, Elena said, but if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. One by one, the Zephyrian crystal singers began moving toward the massive devourer. Their harmonic voices joined with resonance of distant thunders, creating a complex song that seemed to make space itself sing. Elena had never heard anything so beautiful or so sad. The human ships followed, their reality anchors creating protective bubbles around the singers. Elena watched her tactical display as ship after ship vanished under the devourer's attacks, but the survivors kept coming, driven by the desperate hope that they could succeed where an entire ancient civilization had failed. The harmonic song reached a crescendo as 12 Zephyrian singers combined their voices. Elena felt the universe shift around them, reality becoming more solid and stable, despite the presence of the cosmic entities. The largest devourer stopped its feeding and seemed to listen to the song. In her mind, Elena felt the entity's consciousness changing. The hunger was still there, but it was being overwhelmed by memories, images of a beautiful civilization that had reached for the stars, of beings who had loved and created and dreamed. The Eternals remembered what they had been before they became devourers. It's working, Elena shouted. The entity is stabilizing. The massive devourer began to change. The dark void that had hurt to look at directly started to fill with light. Reality strengthened around it instead of being drained away. For the first time in millions of years, one of the Eternals chose to exist rather than consume. But the transformation came at a terrible cost. The harmonic interface required enormous energy, and Elena watched in horror as one by one, the Zephyrian singers burned out their crystal matrices. Their beautiful bodies became dull and gray as they poured their life force into the healing song. Stop, Elena called out. You're killing yourselves. This is why we have waited 50 years, Harmony of Forgotten Stars replied, their ancient voice growing faint. Not to warn of the danger, but to be ready for this moment, to sacrifice ourselves so that others might live. The newly restored Eternal turned its attention to its fellow devourers. Elena felt its consciousness touching theirs, sharing the memory of what they had once been. The harmonic song spread from mind to mind, carrier by the entity itself. One by one, the other devourers began to remember. The hunger that had driven them for so long was replaced by understanding and remorse. They stopped their feeding and began the slow process of healing, choosing existence over consumption. Elena felt tears running down her face as she watched cosmic horror transform into cosmic beauty. The entities that had threatened to unmake the galaxy were becoming something new. Not the pure consciousness they had originally sought, but a balanced fusion of matter and energy that existed in harmony with reality. The crisis is over, Elena transmitted to the fleet. The devourers they're healed. The celebration that followed was muted by the cost of victory. Half the Zephyrian singers had died in the harmonic interface, their crystal bodies burned out by the enormous energy requirements. The human fleet had lost 15 ships and their crews, but they had saved the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, Elena found herself at the center of a transformation in galactic politics. The Zephyrians, once shunned as harbingers of doom, were welcomed back into galactic society as heroes and saviors. Their harmonic technology became the foundation for new detection systems that could identify reality distortions before they became dangerous. Humanity's reputation as the species that adopts the unwanted became legendary throughout the galaxy. Diplomatic missions began seeking human mediation for conflicts involving outcasted species or unpopular ideas. Elena, now Admiral Vasquez of the Joint Human-Zephyrian Research Fleet, stood on the observation deck of the new Kepler station. The facility had been rebuilt as a monument to cooperation between species, with crystal structures growing alongside human engineering in perfect harmony. "Do you ever regret it?" asked Resonance of Distant Thunder. They had survived the harmonic interface, though their crystal body bore permanent scars from the experience. Listening to the warnings that everyone else ignored, Elena watched ships from dozens of species docking at the station, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible just months before. How can I regret something that saved billions of lives? Many would have chosen the easier path, ignored the uncomfortable truth, listened to popular opinion instead of difficult facts. Elena smiled. Then they wouldn't be human. We've never been very good at ignoring people who need help, even when helping them makes us unpopular. Resonance of Distant Thunder S harmonic. Voice carried notes of gratitude and friendship. Perhaps that is why the universe needs humans. Someone must be willing to hear the voices that others choose to ignore. Elena nodded, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, the healed Eternals were working to repair the damage they had caused during their time as devourers. Other species were beginning to overcome their prejudices and listen to voices they had previously dismissed. It wasn't a perfect galaxy, but it was a healing one, and Elena was proud that humanity had played a part in making that healing possible. There will always be new voices that need to be heard, Elena said. New outcasts who need someone to believe in them. New uncomfortable truths that need to be faced.